Okay.
Go from there.
All right, guys, it is Tuesday and we are live. We have, first, Kayla McDonald. This is Lindsay Weber.
Hello, hello.
And we have the Constantines on with us, Miss Jamie and Mike. And today we're going to be talking about, what Jamie does, social media managing, and you're a vlogger and Miss TikTok
Cool.
Jamie.
All the things.
And then, what did we say? We're talking about, what it's like to be married to a top producing real estate agent.
Yes.
And then just how that works in your guys' marriage and life and all of the fun stuff.
He speaks very highly of you.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah. Last time we were on, we started talking about Jamie and we're like, oh, we gotta have her on here.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
She knows. I say it to her too every day. So
How long have you guys been married now?
2003.
yes, this is our
October.
21st year, but we've been together for 20. This will be our 26th year together.
Cool.
Yes.
College, right?
No, Marine Corps.
Oh.
Yeah, when I was
That's really
stationed,
good.
I was
Hawaii.
stationed in Hawaii, and it was just like the most, what's the word, fortuitous meeting. And so the story behind it is my roommate. We were living off base. We were both non-commissioned officers, and so my roommate and I were sitting there and we're watching the NFL because the NFL games started at like 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. Hawaiian time.
Mm-hmm.
We had to move out of our apartment and move into another one the next day because we lived off base. So he says, hey, why don't you go in like an AOL chat room? I'm really dating myself here because this was in the 90s when it was all dial up and whatever.
I
So-
love the AOL chat rooms.
I still have AOL, so it's fine.
It took like 5 minutes for just to get you in,
Yeah.
And so I went in there and he's like, look, he goes, just go ahead and chat and see if you can get a girl to come over here and clean the house. So I'm like, okay, great. I'm like, I don't mind cleaning. He goes, no. He goes, just go ahead and do it and whatever. So I'm in this chat room, right? No, it wasn't her. So
That's the thing. He always leads off with this, and people are thinking, "Oh, Jamie went over and cleaned his."
because
So-
I'm a
okay, go
storyteller,
ahead, keep
woman,
going.
because you gotta lead them into the
I'm
story.
like, gosh, I hope they don't think I'm the girl that.
So-
that on AOL.
So
Okay,
I go ahead and I'm sitting there and I'm chit-chatting on AOL, and this girl pops up and she's like, hey, I'm over in Aiea Heights or wherever she was, and we lived in Aiea Heights, which is right by Camp Smith.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, hey, we got to clean our apartment. She goes, well, I'll clean your apartment if you take me to the 50th State Fair. 50th State Fair was at Aloha Stadium. So my roommate sits there and he just starts laughing. He goes, well, what did she say? He goes, I said, I got to take her to the fair. He goes, great. You're going to take one for the team and I'll pitch in, so you can pay for her to get in. So the girl comes over, cleans it better than any Marine Corps barracks I've ever seen. I mean, this girl made it spotless. Like she wanted to go to that damn fair.
Mhm.
So we go ahead, and the next day she pulls up, and out of the passenger seat is my wife. And this girl, we go to the fair and she goes, I hope you don't mind. I brought my friend along. The second I saw my wife, I knew. And I was never a believer in, I played the field more than I should have. And
There's a name. There's a name for that, for people like that.
yes, I was a slut. And so, but the second that I met my wife, the second that I laid eyes on her, she didn't even speak yet. My breath was taken away. She was the perfect woman. Never seen anybody more beautiful in my life. And then when I physically met her and we were talking, she's also, as beautiful as she is, she's an even sweeter person.
Yeah.
And so we went to the fair. Within about 2 hours, the girl that showed up, let's just say not my type. And she also had like a very, very young kid. And so Jamie and I, the girl went to go do something with her kid, and we're playing like this little basketball hoop game, and I was trying to win her a prize. So I go ahead and I win her the prize. And then at the same time, we slipped each other underneath the basketball. We slipped each other our phone numbers at the same time. So she was trying to sneak her number to me to not be, a bad friend. And then I was trying to sneak my number to her because I was like, this is the one. And that was it. And then from that point forward, I think it was like a week or two later, we went on a date almost immediately. I brought her, I remember everything she was wearing when I first saw her. You know, she had overalls, her hair was done in pigtails, and just, you know, it was just, I'll never forget it. So she worked on base is what I found out. And when she worked on base, we went and had lunch, and I brought her giant sunflowers. And so that's kind of the flower that we've stuck with for 20 some odd years. Whenever there's like a big event, I'll just bring her the biggest giant sunflowers I can find. And that's it, you know. And then we dated for a while. And for me, I'm a very big planner. And so she got irritated with that quite quick, because when I left the island, you know, we were both kind of like, okay, we're going to make this work.
Mm-hmm.
I had to get a job. I got out, had no clue what I was going to do. My uncle was working selling furniture to celebrities in Boca Raton, Florida. He goes, you would be great at it. So I ended up selling furniture at a place called Carl's Furniture in Tampa. It's known as Robin Stuckey. High-end furniture. I sold furniture to Anna Kournikova, Don King, Jimmy Johnson. I mean, number of different celebrities came in there. Some were great. Some it's like, I can't wait for them to get out.
Mm-hmm.
But you would just be selling furniture for their yacht, for their mansion, for whatever it was. I wanted to make enough money because I was living in a little 1-bedroom, 1-bath, absolute horrific apartment in Delray Beach before Delray Beach was as nice as it is now. And she came over and visited. And I just didn't feel like I was ready yet to like start life. You know, not that I didn't want to be with her. It was just, I just wasn't ready because I had to plan. I wanted to have a nest egg of money. I didn't want to struggle the way that my parents did.
Mm-hmm.
So she went back to Hawaii, came back, and at that time, a friend of mine from the Marine Corps that I was also in high school with, a guy named Mike McCarthy, said, hey, my girlfriend's working in mortgage and finance. I think you might be good at it. And I'm like, I sucked at math in high school.
Yeah,
You know, he goes, look, just give it a shot. He goes, you'll get guaranteed income for 3 months. And I was leaving making what I thought was really good money in furniture sales of all things, but I didn't want to be like Al Bundy selling shoes and raising a family. So, you know, I went ahead and I took a leap and I said, great, let me go into it. And after, I think it was 3 months, I became like the top 20 in the entire company out of like 1,700 lenders. I think I was number 16 in the country, and they were flying us all over the place. So then she came out, and that was it. And then we've been inseparable ever since.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I can appreciate now. Like, number one, being older, being together for a while and all that stuff, because being young, when I had met him, I was 19, just turning 20. So it's one of those things like, okay, he's going to get out of the military. I'm going back and forth from Florida to Hawaii, and being so young and kind of even naive at that time. It's like, wow, like, and he's like, I just want to make sure that I'm ready. And but I didn't understand that at that time. But then now, like, I can see that because it's still instilled in him.
Right.
So I can see that and I can appreciate it now, because a lot of things that we've gone through in our life, he's taken the time to make sure that everything is the way that it should, to plan for the future, you know, for our kids, for our family, our home, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, okay, now that we're like getting up there in age, like now I see it. But that was, yeah, being so young and having to go through that, meeting somebody and then they just leave, and it's that long distance relationship thing. That was definitely learning opportunity.
It also didn't help that I fake proposed to her one time. I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny.
She still doesn't.
No, she definitely
She
doesn't.
still doesn't
Definitely
think
doesn't.
so.
But to me, it was hilarious because we were in our little
Well, this
1-bedroom
isn't the wrong
apartment.
crowd. No.
Look, I get it. Looking
He's
back,
gonna
We're
ask
like-
why you're unable.
I
to
was
right now.
I was young. I was stupid. I thought it was funny. Looking back, it wasn't. But she was cooking. You know, she was in the kitchen, and I think we were both cooking dinner or something like that. So I went in. I got down on one knee, and she looks at me, and I said, "Will you?" And she's like, and I go, "Set the table." Oh, that was the wrong. She was so mad, and
Lucky
so
she didn't take the frying pan and
she should have. No,
do
in
that.
retrospect, she definitely should have. But she
That's not
literally is
her.
the sweetest person ever. And so I made sure that when I proposed to her that I did it the right way. You know, I contacted her dad. I said, I want your daughter's permit, because her dad's in Hawaii, so I couldn't like go meet with him.
Yeah.
And I said, I'd really like to have your permission to marry your daughter. And he said, absolutely. And he goes, you've been wonderful to my daughter and this and that, which for you know, a white guy, or a haole is what they call him in Hawaii, for
what?
a haole.
Howley.
A haole means like a mainlander.
Okay.
But it's only geared towards really white people, because they really don't like that the white man took over their island back in 1947 or whatever it was, overthrew their monarchy. And then prior to that, it was sugarcane farmers that came in and took over some of the land. So they refer to Caucasians as haoles. And so when you go there and you live there, our very first Valentine's Day, I made a reservation to take her out to dinner. And we sat there, had a reservation for 7 o'clock, and all these other local people kept getting seated ahead of us. And I looked at her, I said, they're not going to let us get seated because I'm a military white guy.
I'm gonna go
And
sit
she-
over here.
And she just didn't realize it. She just said, no, there's no way. And I said, okay. So I go up and I say, hey, you know, we had a reservation for 7. I called a couple days ago. Oh, we see your reservation. That's fine. And then they would just, and they just kept seating all these other local people. I mean, it didn't matter if they were Asians, Samoans, Tongans, it didn't matter. They were not seating us. So finally, after about an hour and a half, I looked at her, I go, we're not going to get seated. Let's just go somewhere else. I don't remember where we went, but we went somewhere else. And the best thing about my wife is that she didn't care. She's not, never has been, never will be a materialistic person that was like, we have to go to a 5-star restaurant. We have to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's part of what I really love about her is that she's so laid back, and she just loves, like, it's just spending time together. Like, my favorite thing in the world is just spending time with her, period. Doesn't matter where we're at. She goes on a lot of showings with me. Just like all this weekend, we were in Dunedin, and I had to go show some houses in Dunedin, and she'll just drive along with me and we'll go get lunch or something like that. She just sits in the car and does her social media stuff, because what she does for work is she can do it remotely wherever.
Right.
And I love it, because I was never exposed to that as a kid. And I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think you were as either, because our parents are both divorced. And I learned from watching others. I talk about this, like even in the classes over at Remax Alliance that we do, I learned from watching others' mistakes. My parents had the most volatile marriage, and it taught me everything I needed to do the opposite.
Right.
And so, you know, I tell her every day, multiple times a day, how much I appreciate her, how much I love her. I set her day up every single day. I wake up, I make her coffee. Well, first I feed the dogs, then I make her coffee, and then I make her breakfast every single day if she wants it. If she doesn't want breakfast, then, you know, then I just don't make it. But I'm always going to ask her, because if I can start her day off right, that makes my day better. And it makes her day easier. And
I think the breakfast thing, because, you know, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, like he brings you breakfast in bed, which is great. Sometimes I have to overthink it. He's like, do you want breakfast? I'm like, well, I
only
mean,
if there's
we're
bacon.
going to the gym, and then it's like, I always overthink it. I'm like, if I'm hungry, I'm hungry. If I'm not. But really, I think where that stemmed from was years ago. I feel like it's been like maybe like 8 years. So it was when I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And then I had to get my thyroid removed, all that kind of stuff, which was a really like stressful. He was just like so stressed out and worried and all that stuff. But it was when like I had come home from the hospital, and like fortunately I was still able to eat, because getting that surgery, it doesn't affect like eating or anything like that. So I was still able to eat. And I think that's where it started, him really like bringing me breakfast in bed when I kind of like try to remember. Right. And then ever since then, it's just kind of like been part of it. And even like the coffee thing, I'm really grateful for that, because I joke like it would be neat to just have a coffee maker right next to the nightstand, because I love coffee so much, which it happened one time when we were renovating the kitchen that I did. I'm like, why don't I just keep it there? Why do people not put it on their nightstand?
Yeah.
And then the other day he was doing the thing, letting the dogs out, making breakfast, doing all that stuff. And he even asked me, he's like, do you want me to get you coffee? And I was like, yeah, oh yeah, sure, yes, please. And then he goes and he lets the dogs out, and he comes back in, and he's got his laptop. And then I looked at him like, and then he's like, oh, the coffee's still sitting there.
I sat there and I was like, I forgot something. And then Princess gladly mounted. She looks at me like, how dare you forget my coffee?
And I was trying.
And I sat there
like
that. I left it on the. So I go in there. I'm like, oh my god.
A part of me didn't want to be like that, because I'm like, oh, here now I'm like turning into like, excuse me. But I was just like, did he forget to make it? Like, should I go make it myself? But I was looking.
That wasn't the big one. It's when she started like, can you give me like a what is it, cold foam on top? Like, she thought I was a freaking Starbucks barista. I go, you're getting a regular coffee with some creamer. I'm not turning into a barista. I don't have time for that stuff.
They make it in a can now, and you can.
Oh no, I'm well aware.
Yeah,
I'm well aware.
they have.
But then if I do that, here's the
liquid.
problem: is that she'll mountain pile me. and it'll be like, oh, did you put cold foam on it? Can you put like 2 pumps of caramel on top? It never ends. And so I'm like, look, your coffee that I make is going to be basic. You're getting coffee, you're getting creamer. I'm not a barista. And it works out really well. But she'll, if she could drink coffee as a permanent thing all day, she would, because she has days where she goes to no, please don't, please don't agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so bad
That
for your
is the
insides.
answer.
I
But
know it is, but it's so good going down, and you're like, it just brings you so much joy.
Yes, it fuels your soul.
but then you get the high, and then you get the crash, and you get all that stuff.
Well, when you drink enough of it, you don't really get the high.
Mm-mm.
You know, you just kind of are drinking it for survival.
Yes.
This
more of a
conversation is not going the way that I thought it was going to go. Clearly, it's not. I'm in a different room right now.
Reach your crowd.
I know.
I call it my
So-
therapy drink. Like people have therapy animals. Like that's my therapy
Yeah.
coffee. It's just
I like the routine.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A lot of it started when we were making meals prior to her diagnosis, when she had gone through cancer, and fortunately it was a very treatable, cancer. But she woke up one morning, had 5 tumors in her neck. You can see them, big golf balls, and we're like, where the hell did that come from? I freaked out. I have cried. I can count on one hand how many times in my life I cried. I actually went into the woods where I go hunting, to my hunting stand. I just bawled my eyes out, and because my best friend that I've had since we were, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, whatever it is, grew up next to him. He's been battling cancer for a long time. He went through like 10 years of leukemia and chemo and radiation, and he got blasted pretty bad. And all I could picture was that could be my wife, because I didn't know. I had no idea. And then what was so we were doing, or she was doing, fitness competitions. I was training her for the fitness competitions. I would cook our meal prep daily, every 2 or 3 days. I don't like to meal prep for like a week, because by the time you eat food on Friday after you cook chicken, it's like disgusting. So I like to change the diet up a little bit, whether it's chicken, fish, beef, whatever, broccoli, all that good stuff. And for the most part, we eat really healthy. I think we talked about it last time. I like to hunt, my own meat. If I go fishing, I bring home as much fish as I can, because I want true, like, real meat, because your body notices the difference when you're eating processed Walmart, Publix garbage. I don't care if it says Greenwise on it. It's garbage.
it's
It's
processed.
literally
Still garbage.
processed and antibiotic filled food.
To be able to,
And
Last.
so that's where kind of the meal stuff had started. But I'm trying to think of, there's a country music song that talks about it. Live Like You Were Dying, like Tim McGraw. And that's all I can think about. So ever since that day, where she went through her diagnosis, we always try to have as much fun together as we can. And I didn't know this until we started actually like traveling the world a little bit, how adventurous she is. She was, of all of us, we're sitting there, me, my boys, and my wife. We went through Europe on the Eurail, and we get to Germany. She speaks fluent German. A Hawaiian that speaks German, I know. And then we get to Switzerland, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I've jumped out of planes and whatever before. I'm like, let's go jump off the Alps. She's like, great. She's just first one to run out. Boom, takes off. I'm like, she's never done it before, but she's just like, she's so carefree, and she doesn't really think about things until like afterwards. But she's willing to do just about anything.
Right.
And it's so refreshing to be around someone like that every single day of my life, that, except boating. She's not really, she doesn't like going boating until I got a spot lock trolling motor, because the anchor was the one argument in our life that we just couldn't get past. I don't know why she couldn't figure out how to throw an anchor.
No,
but
I think that's what a lot of couples that I found have gone through, right? It's that whole anchoring, and it's that whole
It can be
process.
stressful.
And then even docking the boat, like it's that whole process where, like, as couples, I think a lot of people have struggled with that part. So
Princess. I just sit
right.
there. As long as I've been on boats and everything growing up here, I just sit there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you want me to do? And Mike's like, I'll do it. And I'm like,
Same
okay.
it's harder with 3 other people, like 2 kids and then a wife. I can't, there's no way to dock it on my own, because I can't walk on the side and all. I'm like, just grab the dock and just hold on. I'll take care of everything else. What did you say? I'm like, okay. I'm like, we're already in. The current is starting to take us away. So anyway, in order to alleviate that, I ended up getting one of those spot lock trolling motors. I just hit a button. It stays where we want to go.
Yep.
It's made going out boating and fishing with them so much better. But I want to touch on one thing, just because Jamie brought it up. So when she got diagnosed, literally the scariest moment of my life, and being in the military, I was a part of some pretty horrific things. And this might touch some nerves with people that may, listen to this, watch this, whatever, but we had full health insurance. I pay $2,500 a month for her and for my kids. I don't have it. I go without health insurance because I can go through the VA, which is worse than third world healthcare. But I don't go to the doctor unless I'm literally have a major issue.
Yeah.
So we filed a claim with our health insurance, which I think was United Healthcare at the time. Might have been Blue Cross. I don't know. We had to switch a couple times. So we tried to get her into Moffitt. And Moffitt, I'm not making this up. We get a call from the head person at Moffitt, says, hey, your endocrinologist says you need surgery like yesterday. You have 5 large tumors that like literally grew overnight. You have a very, very aggressive form of cancer. Great. When can you get us in? We can't. So what are you talking about? Said, we can't get you in because you don't have Obamacare. I said, what are you talking about? I said, I have healthcare. They said, yeah, you're on our provider list too. But the difference is when you pay for healthcare as a business for self individual, your reimbursement is 90 days. We can get paid through basically people that don't work or have limited, and we'll get reimbursed through the government right away. And I said, no problem. How much is it to pay cash? It was $92,000. I never forget it. And we didn't have a whole pile of money at the time, but I didn't care. I just wanted her to be okay. I said, I will bring you a cashier's check. I will pay for the surgery. Don't. He goes, I can't, because if we know you have insurance, we can't do that to you. I said, great. Then why can't you get her in? He's like, well, I can, but it won't be for a month or maybe 2 because we want to get as many. He goes, my job is to make money for Moffitt. Moffitt has all those wonderful commercials. I will never do anything for that place again, period. For the way that they treated us, because he told me, he goes, we are a for-profit business and they have all these great touching commercials and all that stuff. Without bashing Moffitt too much, I get a call on a Saturday or Sunday.
I think it was a Sunday.
I think it was Sunday at like 7 p.m. Don't know how this happened. Things happened, the world works in mysterious ways. And it was, I still get like a little choked up thinking about it. I get a call from a guy named, he's like, this is Dr. Clayman. And I said, hey, Dr. Clayman. I go, are you with Moffitt? He goes, no, I have the Clayman wing for thyroid cancer at Tampa General. I said, great. He goes, I heard about your story. I'm not charging you a dime. You bring your wife here tomorrow morning, be here. I think it was like 4:30 a.m. Your surgery was at like 5. He goes, I think it's horrible what they do, when he was discussing, Moffitt. Yeah. And I said, Doc, I'm happy to pay you. He goes, I have an entire wing of a hospital. He goes, I'm fine. You don't pay anything. Bring your wife in here. Surgery is going to take 20 minutes. And I still have chills thinking about it to this day. We show up. He does the surgery, comes out. He says, look, your wife's tumors were fairly advanced. She had a little bit that spread down towards her lymph nodes, but I cut everything out. She should be fine. I don't see any reason why she won't make a full recovery. And I said, okay, that's great. He goes, but before I'm telling you anything else, you are going to pour that out, because I had a soda in my hand. I don't normally drink soda, but it's the only thing they had in the waiting room. He goes, that stuff is poison. Pour it out. I said, well, do you have water? He goes, no. And I'm going to talk to my staff about that, but pour that out. He goes, before I'll talk to you. So I said, okay, great. So he starts telling me about, hey, this is this, this is this, this is this. I tried multiple times to send gifts, to send whatever. He wouldn't accept them. I mean, you talk about someone that was literally sent from heaven just save
people and just do the right thing and help people and cares. Not like money is not his first priority.
He is one of the few physicians that I've ever met that the Hippocratic Oath actually meant something. Yeah. When a doctor graduates, they have to, raise their hand like we do in the military, protect and defend the Constitution, all enemies, foreign and domestic. They have to do it. I don't know what it says, but it's something around patient care, stuff like that. This guy literally lived it.
Yeah.
Didn't want anything, wouldn't let me make the copay.
Wow.
I said, at least let me pay my copay. He goes, you don't pay a dime. He did go to my insurance. The insurance carrier ended up reimbursing him for whatever it was. I think the surgery through that he charged was like 20 grand, where Moffitt was charging 92. And he goes, I don't care. He goes, but your wife is going to be fine. And he goes, the guy did like 15 surgeries in an hour. It was the craziest thing. I've seen women go in, getting out, in and out. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. This guy's like amazing at how fast he can get surgeries done. So, when you go through something like that, that literally scares the living daylights out of you, everything okay on the monitor?
Reagan Weiss goes, "Oh my God, it's Mike and his MMA coach."
Hi, Reagan.
He's still trying to get us to. He
So
still wants me to do some sort of like sparring thing with him.
Full video.
Yeah, we should do it. Kick his butt.
so when you get news like that, you've known me for a while now. I'm never like, too high or too low. I'm always kind of like the same.
Yeah.
I'm always pretty happy-go-lucky. I try not to be, angry, stuff like that. But you talk about news that just crushes your soul. When you see that your life partner, the one that you just want to be with more than anything in the world, is going through something that you can't control.
You're powerless.
You are. All you can do is put your faith and just say, hey, whatever you want to say, Jesus, take the wheel or something, because I couldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't for Dr. Clayman, I don't know where we would be today, because it was crazy how quick. She woke up one morning, she's sitting, she's going like this, and I look and I'm like marbles in your throat. They were big tumors, like big sized tumors, and out of nowhere. And then what happens is, if that would have prolonged, it basically would have choked off her windpipe. If we couldn't get in for surgery, it would have been game over, and I would have been single dad, 2 young kids, whatever. But thankfully, she's okay, and now she gets treated with coffee and food every morning.
Yes. Short story long.
And so,
As she should.
Yeah.
So Theo said, God is amazing, and it shows how much love he has. Jamie and
I
Mike,
can see it on here now. Yeah.
Cool.
You guys have helped so many people, and this was his way of showing you that.
Yeah. Well,
Hi,
if you want to talk about people that actually help people, that Papapanos family,
Oh
I
yeah.
know.
that they are as close to, like, Theo always jokes, he's like, my dad loves you like a son. He says it all the time.
Yeah.
And I love them probably more, because without them, my business wouldn't be where it's at. Without them, my life wouldn't be where it's at. The number of like one-on-one conversations I've had just away with Theo, a couple with Eric, and with Christo, like I just say, hey, can I talk to you for a little while? Because I have parents, but I don't. I haven't seen my dad in 12, 15 years, whatever it's been. He lives in Palm Harbor, and he just wants nothing to do with anybody. Not my brother, my sister, me, whatever. Great. Good. You're going to live your solitary life, and then on your deathbed, nobody's going to come see you. My mother lives up in Ocala, and she's the same way. She just, for some reason, after they went their separate ways, they just ostracized the children. And for me, like, I got the worst of it. My brother was living with his girlfriend. My sister randomly moved to Europe and didn't tell anybody. And that, my sister's kind of like the Spitfire of our family. I love the hell out of her for it, because she just flows with the wind.
Go to Europe. Bye.
And she did.
Bye to
She is
anyone.
the Spitfire.
Oh, I can tell you stories about my sister that I'm like, I still don't know how we got out of these situations, but she's awesome. She's got a really happy marriage. But see, that out of every negative comes something good.
Yeah.
And so my brother, my sister, and me all have long, happy marriages. I attest to that we learned what not to do from watching the example that we grew up in.
Right.
And not to bash my parents. My parents, I think, were fantastic parents up until about the age of 10 or 11. And then for some reason, things just got really, I know the reason, and I won't go into it here, but things just went really south really fast.
Yeah.
And, when you have a traditional English household, which, my father was born in Liverpool, grew up next to George Harrison from the Beatles, played soccer with all those guys. He knew John Lennon, and he knew all of them except McCartney. And then my mother came from Cleveland, Ohio, and their families just didn't, they were oil and water. And we would see the fighting constantly. And growing up, it was stressful, to be around that stuff.
I feel like, and we were having this conversation the other day, whether it's parenting or relationships, and it's like all generational of the things that they learn and how they can do something better, and so on and so forth. So we see what our parents did, and all we try to do is try to make things better for both their children and our marriage, and our children and their wives and families are going to do things completely different than what we did for the things that we did wrong. So I just think
That's
that it's
true.
a generational thing, and it's part of growing.
That is
This
very
generation
true.
scares the hell out of me. Like our parents thought we were weird, But like this
I
generation,
agree with you, but they think we're weird too.
but this generation doesn't talk. They live their life through a phone and through a screen.
Yeah.
And I love my boys more than anything in the world. They are who they are.
Mhm.
You can't miss my oldest son, Cameron, when you walk into Publix. He's got a big curly afro hair, which I had something similar when I had hair when I was younger. And they're both incredibly smart. They're very perceptive on things. They are much more caring than I was, but they also don't communicate quite as well. So I found that like in this generation, that's kind of a thing now, which is very concerning. Like they don't know how to sign their own name. Everything's going to be thumbprint, eye print, which maybe I'm being ignorant to that. Maybe that is the future, same as they said about crypto until crypto fell and now, all that stuff. But I just think it was different, like growing up, if you were talking to your parents, I'm talking to my parents, I could have that conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
The kids today, they don't, they just bottle
They
up.
text me from the other room and I'm responding back.
So
Yeah. And it's just, it's just
Mike
one of
is-
those things.
Mike is talking about like Cameron. So I had the experience of going to have Cameron get his driver's license and all that. We both took him to go get his test. And then when it was time for him to like take his picture and sign all the stuff and answer all the questions at the DMV, it's partially my thing too. And I had this conversation, and I guess a lot of moms probably go through this too. It was kind of like she was saying, do you have any disabilities or that's going to affect your driving? And he just kept looking at me,
They
and
have
I
no
was
idea what the answers
and
are.
I was shaking my head no, and he's like, no. And then she's like, have you ever like done this and blah blah blah? And he's looking at me, and I'm like, no. And he's like, no. And the lady goes, he needs to answer the questions on his own. And number one, his age, right? Like he's already 18. So it's like, that was a learning opportunity for me. And I realized, oh my gosh, like I'm answering for him, but he's also dependent on me for that too. And it was kind of like a shock when she was like, he needs to answer his own questions. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's true.
Like,
so I'm sorry.
Sometimes it just takes repeating the same question. They hear it from a stranger and they're like, I don't know what to say.
Right.
But if you're repeating that same question, then all of a sudden that they know the answer.
Yes.
It's very weird the way that they communicate for sure.
Yeah.
Mine's 20. So she asked me questions. I'm like, you really don't know this answer? Where did I go wrong? Like, what happened?
It was one of the most terrifying days. And your daughter or son is 20.
20, daughter.
Okay. Ours, at 18, he didn't want to drive. Like I was like, hey guys, here, let's drive and do whatever. They didn't want to really learn how to drive. It was weird to me.
Yeah, I've
And
heard that. I've heard that.
Brother-in-laws, the younger ones, they didn't want to drive.
Mhm.
Girls want to drive.
Yeah.
Boys don't. And I'm sitting there, I'm telling my kids, I'm like, look,
Loved the
I'm like,
cars.
I
no.
could not wait to get a car and drive. Like my parents were not like, sorry to cut you off, but my parents were not like ready for me, and I just signed up for the driver's ed class in school because I'm like, haha, I'm gonna get all my hours, and then I'm gonna get my license, whether you guys like it or not. So
I was driving a stick shift at 13. It was a little
Can you imagine? I have to teach them how to drive a stick shift.
those little Saturn coupes. I mean, I know I destroyed my grandfather's transmission looking back, but he didn't care. My grandfather fought on the beaches in Normandy, and he was just the most calm person. If I did that, my dad in the car, he would have thrown a beer can at me or something, not to drink, but just to get. But anyway, but now, like, one of the most terrifying days is like when we let our son drive to work by himself, and we were just sitting there. I'm like, okay, he's really going on his own right now. This is, we have that Life 360 app where you can see him driving and doing all that stuff.
Thank
So you
goodness
can
for
check
that.
his
It's a blessing
speed.
and a curse all at the same time.
That's
Because
true.
now we can see everything.
Yes.
We can see
Right.
how fast they're going, and we can see all the things that our parents never knew that we were doing.
It's true.
And it's one of those things like letting go
Yeah, it's hard.
is difficult. I always, we talk about it because like looking back, we probably should have had a third kid, and she wanted a daughter. I would have been a different person if I had a daughter.
probably.
But I mean, my brother has 3 boys. I have 2 boys. We kind of know what's going to happen.
That's
She
what he
shakes her
said.
head, but
That's what
it's
he-
just true.
That's always been his thing. He's like, I don't make girls. And it's like, how do you know? Well, because my brother had boys. We had 2 boys. But it's like, right, but there's a lot of families. It's like, you don't know.
I don't want to be like one of these, the 11th child will be a boy or be a girl. It's like, no, you know, and I think it's different with girls, you know. I see like different families that have, you know, all boys or all girls, stuff like that. I mean, I know Reagan's watching. He's got 2 girls or 3.
Yeah, he
Three.
just commented about driving.
Yeah. And then, you know,
Driving
and then
around.
Theo, you know, Theo has Alex and Aria, and
Yeah.
and you know, his kids, they're so far beyond their time. You know, I don't get to see them as often as I'd like to. They are so respectful and such great
Mhm.
kids, and
Yeah.
I've watched kind of the evolution of Theo and Lynette has been an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Because I was there like when they first met, and she was working the register at Christo's and like throwing stuff at Theo, which was still my favorite part of the relationship, because Theo would be hiding in the back, and you know,
Might every once in a while.
It's
I'm
possible
sure she does.
something could get thrown his way from her hand. I don't know.
He may or may not
Still,
deserve it. I don't know.
It's a mystery.
But watching their evolution from like those days to when they had children, and then like now, you know, because Theo had a lot of fun in the restaurant. And then, you know, now that, and he still does have a lot of fun, you know, in a different way. But like watching the person he's become in the past, I'd say 2 years or so,
Mhm.
I never thought I'd see a transformation in a human like that, because it was literally, he just, boom, said, I'm going to do it.
Yep. And he
That's kind of like a military mentality where we just say, all right, here's our mission. Boom, we got to go do it. But he did
I
it
think
in,
they're all waiting for him to be any other, to revert back, and he doesn't.
no, I don't
I
think he will. And I don't think
no,
Lynette will either,
no.
because I think the impact for them, number one, I think Lynette's
They
mom
changed
had a
their
lot to
entire
do with
life.
it.
Absolutely.
And I think that was a big turning point, you know, for what I saw out of Lynette when her mother passed, which was a horribly sad experience.
Mhm.
But watching like the difference, and I pay attention to things. I'm a very big Facebook creeper. We talked about it last time.
Yeah.
And so I watch things from afar with a number of different things, real estate, people in general. But just watching how those kids they're so respectful,
Yeah.
you know. And when I talk to, you know, his father, when I talk to Crystal, it's like the apple of his eye. His grandchildren, you know, Eric's kids, Theo's kids, they're all great human beings. And I'm not saying that just because we're sitting here talking,
Oh, no.
because there's, you know, there's a lot of things happen in the world of Trinity.
Mhm.
And Trinity is a very small town. And so Jamie and I never really a big part of, like, there was a big group that used to hang out 30, 40 deep. And we always kind of keep our space a little bit, because what I've learned is big groups are big problems. And that's where the gossip mill starts. And that's where, you know, I don't ever want to be in that. I can be close friends with someone that I only see every couple of months and talk to them on the phone or whatever. But it's just wonderful to see the evolution of, you know, certain people that we value in our lives.
Yeah.
And I get off on that stuff. I absolutely just love it, because I have a really hard exterior, but I'm actually somewhat of a softie inside. And she and I talk about a lot of stuff privately, and, you know, sometimes it's like Trinity related and whatnot, but it's kind of great to watch those things. It's great to
Yeah.
see the transition of even like Rula and Christo going to being grandparents, and the difference from when, you know, I used to love walking in that restaurant and hearing Chris just, you know, just literally ripping into Theo and Eric. It was like a hobby. I would just sit in booth number 1. I'd be like, okay, what's going to happen today? You know, and
I'm just here for the entertainment.
right, I know, but he did it out of love. But that was his way of bringing up his kids, you know,
Yeah.
and that was similar to the way that I grew up too. So I could relate to it, except, you know, mine was different. It wasn't a business atmosphere. And I think that looking back, the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, other than dealing with, you know, what my wife had gone through, when we were talking earlier about how my sister went to Europe, my brother was living with his girlfriend, I was homeless. And so when I was living on the streets for a couple of weeks, and it wasn't like I was living on the streets as a hobo and whatever. I mean, I brought my clothes to high school, and then my high school coach took me in, but I literally went from one side to the other. My high school coach, Jim Roper, and his wife, Claudia, took me in out of nowhere. Literally out of nowhere. I mean, I went from 192 pounds playing football, you know, soccer, football. I was a semi-pro tennis player even in high school. And I went from 192 to 146 pounds in a matter of less than a month, because I just wasn't eating.
Right.
And I had a friend of mine that worked at Burger King, so I'd go and get food at 11 o'clock at night when they shut down at the corner of Coral Springs Drive and Sample Road, and he would hand me the leftover burgers at the end of the night. That's what I ate. So then I enlisted in the Marine Corps, did all that stuff, but it was the greatest thing ever because we grew up in, say, middle class house. My parents had very horrible spending habits, which is why I'm a big planner today, because I don't want us to ever fight about money, period. We've had none. When I first became a realtor, I didn't get a paycheck for 8 months. Scariest thing ever. We had 2 babies at home. Terrified me. I felt like such a loser. And she supported me the whole time. I mean, I had some pretty bad emotional breakdowns away from her, but she didn't care. We would go to, I think it was Save-A-Lot was the name of the place. And we were eating bologna and cheese she didn't care. Yeah, bologna and cheese, we'll have eggs and we have to like ration 1 egg a piece or something like that. We had no money.
I grew up eating, I think I had this conversation the other day, but I mean, I grew up eating like Vienna sausage. Most people don't like that. Like, I was like, I'll go buy all the cans of Vienna sausage now. And people joke about Spam, although Spam is very expensive these days. But I was like, we could do that. We could do the ramen, Vienna sausage kind of thing. But we just make it work and
yeah. Those hard shell on the outside, but real soft on the inside. Biggest art. Hey, Mikey.
I can actually hear the hey, Mike. Yeah. But it's you learn a lot through.
This is cool.
You learn a lot through like the hard times. Too many people enjoy the easy times and forget about the hard times. And recently we have someone that Theo knows very well. That was a staple in Christo's for years and years. They went through a really, really hard time. I mean, and for me, they called me up about a real estate issue that they had encountered, and there was no better feeling. Everybody in Trinity knows this person. I said, you owe me nothing.
Yep.
I'm like, you helped me start my business. I don't forget that. He got a little choked up, and I was surprised because he's not a choke up kind of guy. And I said, you owe me nothing. When I had a situation, you allowed me to come into your business and advertise, and they go, now this is my time to pay it back. And the world's a round wheel. What comes around goes around, and we all have disagreements, and there's so many little spats, and life is just too short, for those kind of things.
Yeah.
And we've had a good amount of friends over the years, some closer than others, and you also can learn from your friends. Because we had a close relationship with someone that made us even stronger, and not going into details, but like their love language, they would say their love language was fighting. And we never saw it because we were such close friends. Like they would she'd throw stuff at him and stuff. I don't know what the hell's going on. Like at my kid's 16th birthday party, and the lady's like slamming drawers. I'm like, okay, but we looked past it because we were such close friends and things like that. But it made our relationship even better.
Yeah, because you're like, whoa, glad that we don't do that. Like,
I was gonna throw something, but now
I thought
I'm
about it
not.
in my brain, but then I was like, oh,
It doesn't look
like
good.
It's not a good look. But yeah, I think that you grow from who you surround yourself with, whether it's you want to be more like that or your own version of it, or you're like, wow, I definitely don't want to be like that.
Yes.
And
Both ways.
And like you said, going through tough times, no matter what, I guess, avenue of toughness it is, whether it's a health issue, money, or whatever, that definitely makes anybody's relationship grow stronger. And you appreciate all the good times more than you would if you never experienced the bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that is the truth. Absolutely.
So when you were first getting into real estate, like, where were you in all this when he's like, all right, I'm not doing like mortgages and finance anymore, I'm going to be a real estate agent? Like, were you just like, I can imagine you're probably like, okay, great. Like, that's
I was because I like everything that Mike has done, he's succeeded at, and a lot, like whether it was within his control or not in his control, he always managed to figure out a way to make sure that we were always taken care of. And so I always trust him. I always feel safe when I'm with him. I always trust that he's going to make the right decisions. And he's smart. Like sometimes he might say that he's not sharp. Like I feel like the boys probably get their smarts from him. So he's a fast learner. So I know that whatever he felt is the right thing to do. I never really even questioned it. Sometimes I see like, I don't know if it's just in the movies or just people in real life in general, that if their spouse or significant other wants to do something, there's always sometimes there's like pushback, or there's like an argument, like why do you want to do that? But that never crossed my mind to even like question. Like I didn't know anything about everybody's like idea of real estate, of realtors. Oh, you're gonna have open house and bake chocolate chip cookies, but like I understood like the general concept, but I didn't even imagine like exactly what that entailed. But I just kind of trusted that. All right, and then it just kind of just went from there.
Yeah.
And to give you the contrast with how I grew up compared to life with Jamie, is during that exact same time frame. I remember coming home, talking to Jamie, and I was every single morning, I was at Family Fitness, setting up a booth, talking to people, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. She'd show up at 9 a.m. We'd work out. My booth was back up from 4 to 7 p.m. when the people were getting off work. And I was just doing CMAs, nonstop CMAs. Said, hey, I needed them to let me practice.
Right.
And then I ended up getting listings and all that stuff. And she supported me blindly, as I feel a marriage should. Yeah. She didn't put stress on me. She made it much easier for me to not be embarrassed, because I damn near drained our 401k, and I didn't tell her how bad financially we were. We were down to like next to nothing. I mean, literally almost nothing. And at the same time, my brother, I remember driving with my brother, and he pointed at a park bench, which belongs to Kathy Despota. It's the one at the corner of 54 and Little. Mm-hmm. He pointed at that bench, and he goes, you will never, ever be able to sell real estate like that lady. She's been here for 30 or 40 years. Now, I'm not trashing Kathy. Kathy's an amazing agent. She's done amazing things. I'm just saying it because that's what my brother said to me.
So now I have to.
Well, I told him, I go, not only will I do that, I guarantee you I'll become the number one agent. And he's like, no, you won't. He goes, no, you won't.
I'll show you.
And then it took me 8 months, sold my first house. I still have the postcard. It was such a shitty postcard. God, it was so bad.
It worked then.
I printed them. I printed them at the office. I had to hand cut them because I didn't have the money to buy postcards. So I bought stock paper, and I was hand cutting them and then mailing them out. I did EDDM. They were the worst paper you've ever seen. I still have one. I found one, and I still have it left. But that was the difference. Like
back in the day.
that was the difference between like my life then and my life now. When you come from like just a volatile kind of like family, and then for me, like my sun rises and sets with this woman every day. It's the best part of my day, sun coming up, and then at the end of the day, my sun sets when she goes to bed, and that's going to be until the day I die. That is my biggest fear in life, is losing her. And so when you think about it, is an argument really worth it? We really don't. I can count on, I think we've probably had 2 arguments, and most of them were when
I was like, how many is he gonna say? Because like, let's be realistic.
No, but I'm saying like you have
like everybody argues, right?
Well, you have little spats.
Disagree.
You have like little spats. You'll have like little disagreements, right? But an argument I see as like, you go to your corner, you're in your room, this,
right,
right. And so that really happened when our kids were really small. Because looking back, I still feel terrible. I was horrible at the infant stage. I couldn't deal with it. I just couldn't deal with it. The screaming at 3 a.m. and all. She is a saint. She's built for that. For me, I didn't deal with it very well. And that's something that I had to improve upon. So as we got older and things like that, I got better. I got more attentive, and I had to learn, because I always think of the same thing, and going back, to the arguing thing, I think we've had 2 like legit, like knockdown, drag out, just, argument kind of things. But I always keep this in mind. If an argument ever starts up, if something was to happen to her tomorrow, what I want the last memory to be an argument.
Right.
It crushes the argument like that. I just diffuse the situation. I'm sorry. What can I do to make it better?
Yeah.
Simple as that.
You gotta, I feel like you just have to put your ego aside, and you don't want to always be right,
The
even
next
though
day it
sometimes
doesn't
you know
matter.
you are,
Right.
you know, like,
Yeah.
but it's just like, it's not worth it in the end to,
Right.
you know, I hate feeling like angry or mad and annoyed.
Mhm.
I don't like that feeling.
Well, you're arguing
it's
here,
hard.
and the next day you're like,
Why was I even
really
that
wasn't that
mad?
big of a
Like-
deal.
But
to
if you
have
love
that.
someone, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who it is, aunt, uncle, cousin, friend, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You
You
know,
can agree to disagree.
I
You
never
think one way, I'll think another,
Mhm.
and that's okay too.
want those people, their last memory of me, to be an argument.
Right.
Okay. And there's some people you literally can bang your head on the wall. They just want to fight just to fight.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, great. Close that chapter of my life. I don't want to have that in my life anymore.
Stressful.
And yeah, and so like stress. I mean, we're driving this morning, and I have become the calm one, and she is like the road rager. And I think it's because she's a ninja now. She thinks she can like go and do like roundhouse kicks on everyone. But there was a car that, you know, they were tailgating me. And I just sit there, I laugh.
I watch the rearview mirror the whole time. I'm like, they're just, you know, and then I start like getting all fired up. Yes.
So she's sitting there, and I'm like, I go, stop. I go, why are you letting them get you upset? I think it's hilarious. I go, if they want to tailgate me that bad, I go, my favorite thing, I'll just block them, because there was a car here, car here, car there. I just blocked them from going forward. And she's like, why do you do that? I said, well, why? Why am I going to let them get me mad? I go, if they rear end us, it's their fault. And so once I saw another car slowing in front of me, I cut to the right lane. Now those 3 cars were blocking them, and I'm
Oh
looking
my
in the rear
gosh.
view, and she's watching. And this I think it was a lady, right?
It was a
was
lady.
just-
First, we were thinking it was like some kid. Like, oh, we kept saying he
This lady
he's
was so pissed. She was so pissed. And I'm laughing. And we're right by what is it? The Everglades Tractor Supply on the way to Danny Two's shop, right?
Mhm.
So we're driving right past that, and this lady's so mad, and you could see her. And she,
Big
big white SUV, it was a Dodge Durango, and she was so
Like
mad.
white vehicles.
Right.
And I'm laughing, and she's just like, look at that bitch. She's getting what she deserves. I go, why do you
Well,
care? I go, calm down.
One of the things
So,
that
Let
bothers
me finish. Let me
Wait,
finish, and then you go.
Okay.
So she's a habitual interrupter, by the way.
We interrupt each other and everybody all the time, and we're like, gosh, we gotta get better at that.
So
We all just interrupt.
we drive past, and once we get back where the Dunkin' Donuts is, this lady finally gets around, and she does like 90. And I look at Jamie, I go, I hope there's a cop around the corner, because her anger and her rage, which is the way I used to be in traffic, I don't get that way anymore. I learned very, very long ago, angry and driving don't go together,
Yeah.
right? And especially when you grow up in South Florida on I-95, where people will pull a gun and they will shoot at you.
Yeah.
It's South Florida is, to me, like a third world country now. I grew up there. It was fun. I would
Mhm.
never go back. But I'm like, why are you going to put your anger and get upset about someone you've never met, you don't know? And in some cases, you know, depending on the scenario, I'll be like, you know, I wonder what's going, like if I go to a grocery store and I
Something
see
must be
someone,
going on in their
Right.
life.
what's going on in their
Right.
life?
Yeah.
You know, what's going on in their life to where they just have to rush that bad. And, you know, usually if somebody has a medical emergency, they're hitting the horn or whatever, great, you know, let them pass, do your thing, whatever. But some people are just miserable just to be miserable,
Yeah.
you know, and that happened twice to us. It happened on the way to Dunedin when we had some guy in a little Porsche Boxster that was just tailgating the living daylights out of me. And it was on Sunday. And I said, I know his feeling. He's in a sports car and he just wants to hit that gas. When I'm in my Mustang, it frustrates me when I can't punch it, because I love hearing the growl of that Mustang go. But this guy was just frustrated, and he just immediately started driving like an asshole, weaving in and out, came this close to hitting somebody. And I'm like, okay, let's see. He went from one light, maybe a quarter mile, just to turn into Landsbrook. And I'm like, all that for that, buddy? Like, really?
So
You know?
yeah, so there's a few things that I do want to touch on that topic. So yes, it is a good reminder to have the empathy, because you don't know what they're going through. Yeah, so it is a good reminder for me to kind of like come back to that place and be like, maybe there's an emergency, maybe they're trying to get to their kid, like we don't know. So then it's like, okay, come back to that reality. And then the other part is, I think I started getting upset because we were in my son's car and we still have that be patient student driver thing on the back, because he is still very new at driving. So I always get upset because I'm thinking, what if my son was driving the car?
Right.
And then these people see it, you know, but they themselves don't have any sort of concern or compassion for that sense, because of the fact that somebody's kid could be driving, and then it makes them, you know, to make them nervous. And like, I just start overthinking it again, thinking like, okay, if my son was in this car and they were doing that, he would probably get very nervous. But, you know, then I try to remind him, and I use the word assholes if we can swear on this, but I'm like, if people are just being assholes, like, don't let them get you nervous while you're driving. They're going to do it. It's fine, you know. But yeah, so it's a couple of things. Like, it is a reminder to come back to that empathy, because we don't know what they're going through. But then also that he has to remind me too that people don't think like you, or, you know, like, they're like, Jamie, people don't think like you. So whether it's business or whether it's friends or people supporting, like, we get mad at other people because they don't have the same mindset as us. So when I see somebody, it's like, why would they do that? How come they're not? And it's like, because not everybody thinks that same way. So we have to give them grace with that too, which is another reminder. But yeah, there's
It's
a
just
lot
society,
of stuff that
though.
goes into
It's just
that
society as a
scenario.
whole. Ever since, you know, I attribute it more to Amazon than I do to social media. Smartphones came out in 2009. And then if you look at like the personality issues that people have, and the amount of diagnosis for anxiety,
Yeah,
and,
that's
you know, especially when it comes to kids and mainly with women, I think it's like 189% higher issues with anxiety and depression, because people are living through other people's lives.
Yeah.
And so I try to remind Jamie as often as I can, although it's difficult because she likes to film every day of our life, every single, we can't go anywhere. Can you just, like, even on the way in when we're following you in, she's like, can you film me walking into the building? I know what the end product's going to be because she's very good. She does video marketing and social media for corporations. So companies hire her to run their social media. She does an amazing job. But I'm like, in our personal life, can we just kind of chill it out a little bit? No, the answer is no. And I've just had
to always be on if you're always creating content and that's what you do.
I love the end
But
result.
what did you say the other day about, oh my gosh, there was, what was it, a picture or something of the boys that popped up on Facebook? Oh my gosh, I saw the picture. They were so little then. I'm so glad for those pictures.
Facebook
and I said,
time drops come in.
Like,
So
this
my
is
account
why.
got hacked, and I found a way to get my account back from Comibook because they're
You're
horrible.
gonna have to tell me because I've lost mine and I was devastated. But go ahead.
We'll talk after. It took me over a year to get mine back, because I'll tell you afterwards instead of wasting time on this. But they have like those things where they're great little memories, you know. And for me, you know, I love seeing those things. I don't care who it's with. I really don't care.
Yeah.
You know, there's some fun like party moments. I think you were at Theo's house one time where I think it was either Eric or Mohawk that ran through a PVC fence at like a 4th of July party or something, or one of the Greek Easters, and like the entire panel of the fence fell down and it came up, and I'm like, oh my God, I remember that day. But it's just it's good because like when Jamie films things, she's gotten better at it because she knows that for me, when I'm in the moment, I don't care if it's hunting, fishing, or on vacation. I keep my memories up here because I don't really remember anything from when I was a kid. I don't know why, but I've blocked out 99%. I have, you know, when my parents got divorced, they threw out all of my stuff was thrown out. All my trophies, all my awards. Looking back, those things meant nothing. It was great that I achieved those things, but looking back, it means nothing. It's a thing. You know, and I always resort back to Dr. Randy Pausch, The Last Lecture. If you've ever watched The Last Lecture, I watch it once a month, sometimes once a week.
It'll make you cry.
So Dr. Randy Pausch was a guy from Carnegie Mellon University. He was a professor, and he had 3 little kids. He had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, incurable. He went on Oprah. He went, you know, everywhere. He wrote a lecture specifically for his kids. But he gave this lecture at college graduations, commencement speeches, things like that. Highly recommend watching it. It's 10 minutes long. It has made such an impact on my life. And he passed, you know, Dr. Randy Pausch passed. But what hit me, And especially in Trinity, because I've seen people go from literally having nothing to growing big businesses, and then they become very materialistic and they're buying all kinds of crap that they just don't need. None of my business. None of my business.
Right.
But I don't do that. I treated myself to one thing that I always wanted, which was my Mustang. That was it. Period. And to this day, I really don't drive expensive cars or any of that stuff. But to each their own. But what Randy Pausch had spoken about is that he's like me, very, very big planner, way smarter than I am. And so Dr. Randy Pausch had gone ahead and he wanted to be a Disney Imagineer. And he kept all of his rejection letters from Disney. And he had a pile of them.
Yeah, no, now that you mentioned that, now I remember. I know. Yeah. Go
But
ahead.
but
Sorry.
that's what drove him. He developed a skill that was invaluable to Disney. And then Disney approached him and made him a Disney Imagineer.
Mm-hmm.
And with his first paycheck, he talks about what great parents he had and all that stuff. His first paycheck, he went out and he bought a Volkswagen Cabriolet, a convertible Cabriolet, which in the 80s was like cool,
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, yeah, anyway.
I don't know.
It's it was a little compact car. It was not a sports car. It was just kind of like a fun little beachy, almost like a VW Bug with a boxy version of a VW Bug. They made it in a hard top and then they also made it in convertible. So he took out his niece and nephew. And before they got in the car, he had just brought the car home. He poured a can of soda in the back seat.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And after, they cleaned up the soda, whatever, one of the kids got motion sickness and threw up in the back seat. And he said, something? He goes, this is just a thing. I wanted them to see that this car, even though I valued it and I worked for it, was a thing. But the look on my nephew's face when he didn't feel bad for throwing up in the back of the car,
Mm-hmm.
he's like, that's worth more than anything. And he's absolutely right. Absolutely right. And the entire lecture is just so impactful. I'm not a big reader, but, I've read a lot of, Who Moved My Cheese and I've read everything Dr. Ken Blanchard has written, which is about self-improvement. I've been to Tony Robbins seminars. I've been to a lot of different, fortunate things in corporate America and then with Remax as well. But that little 10-minute lecture will teach you everything you need to know about life. I don't care if it's faith-based. I don't care if it's just being a better person, if it's treating your spouse better. But the day that I watched that, and I can't remember who sent it to me. But that is my reset button. That if I'm having a rough day and I'm like, man, God, why are things happening? Like, real estate in the past year,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's volume is down and it's, oh, poor me, boo-hoo. And then I look around, I'm like, I've got the most beautiful woman in the world living with me.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 2 healthy, happy kids. We have a roof over our head. We're doing better than most,
Yeah.
we're doing really well. And she's been with me every single step of that way. You're surprised I didn't tell the story about why. I always tell a story about like why she really married me or why she wanted to be with me. And when I was in the Marines, we went out to eat. I had $236 in my bank account. 236, and in Hawaii, I was like, I'm rich. I'm rich, bitch.
I made it.
And so
I made it.
I'm
We had
like,
air conditioning.
yeah, because my apartment had air conditioning, and I'm like,
It
she
was-
got me for
it
my
was
money,
nice and
$236
cool.
bucks. But when you sit back and you take this big ball of life, right? And I caught a lot of crap from a lot of people for years, and I've stopped kind of sharing it because some of them took it to just a weird level, and I don't know why. Because I like to celebrate people's success. If somebody does something that's really good, I'll call them and say, hey, I think that was awesome. I don't go on Facebook saying, whatever. To me, getting that phone call from somebody is way more impactful. I would still handwrite letters. I don't do pre-typed garbage. I handwrite letters to this day. But when you can celebrate the little moments in life, and the crap that I was getting was that I always wanted to expose my kids to what we were never exposed to: vacations and seeing the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so between the ages of, I think it was 8 and about 16, we took my kids through Europe. We took them through Alaska. We took them through Montana, Idaho, went RVing through North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho. I think I'm missing a state.
South Dakota. No.
We went through all that
Went
stuff.
to a lot of places.
A lot of places.
But the kids are like they remember those things. You know, they really remember those things because like my memories of my childhood are mostly negative. And I've tried to take that and turn that into a positive, because when it takes effort to remember the good times,
They weren't that
that's a
great.
problem.
Yeah.
I don't want my kids to think that way. And we don't spoil our kids. Our kids don't have luxurious everything. You know, they didn't get cell phones till I think they were 15 or something. Not that we can't afford it. It was just that I wanted them to kind of learn the value of things.
Mhm.
You know, the pandemic was the greatest thing I think that ever happened. Taught my kids how to, you know, change oil on a car, change car tires, cook, you know, clean fish, do, you know, riding lawnmowers. They were driving
Man
around, you know,
things.
Yeah.
not even man things, but
Life
like, you know,
things,
like
life.
I'm just basic things that a lot of that are taken for granted these
And the
days.
time that you had to be with them.
Yes, we actually
Right.
rode bikes
yeah.
to Starkey Market, and the boys hadn't even rode a bike since they were little. Partially my fault for like trying to be overprotective, but I realized that was like the first time we all like got on a bike and rode to Starkey Market that one day, and that was like the only day that we did that. But it's still a
core
moment in
memory,
history.
though. Like, and it's
Yeah.
a fun time that you guys had. So, you know, I think that's missing a lot in a lot of households. Not all, but
Playing
A
games,
lot.
board games.
You just
Yeah.
have to be
because
willing
we're
to take
all
chances.
like this all the time. You
That's
know.
true.
Or go, and if I can't do it, I'm going to whatever. I have groceries delivered to my house instead of taking the kids and doing checklists and teaching them how to budget and things like that. I don't have time.
Mike,
But-
Yeah.
Mike made us go and actually walk around Sam's Club because I do the pickup order a lot.
Mhm.
Partially because I don't want to forget anything,
Mhm.
and partially because I don't want to spend an hour in there. But Mike's like, we have to go inside. We can't be lazy like this. And I'm like, all right.
That's the
fine."
military
It is
side.
good to have people.
That's the military
that
side for
push you to
him.
do
That's why
that.
I like him. I don't get to see him that often,
Yeah.
but he's like super kind of like quiet and reserved. But I think he and I have a lot of similar traits.
Well, yeah.
And
Like you said, you watch things from afar. He likes to observe things
Yeah.
and watch from afar, even though he's not stalking everybody on the internet.
He's not a creeper.
it's made my business. It's made my business better
Yeah.
because you'll be amazed what you can
It's
see.
research. It's
Yeah.
What you
research.
can see, even successful businesses in this area and people that know what they're doing. And I'll sit there and I'll look at Jamie and be like, watch this. This is going to blow up in their face. And sometimes it's, you know, realtors, I'm like, well, this one is just digging a hole for themselves. And sure enough, it'll happen. But even like, you know, business owners that are not even in the industry that I work in, I don't care what industry it is. I'll sit back and I'll say, that's a great idea. I got to find a way to make that work for me in real estate, or watch this. This is going to turn out and be this is not going to be good. It's a train wreck.
Yeah.
You know, but you can watch those things. And then, you know, like we talked about before, just the evolution of friendships, the evolution of couples. I love watching that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's reality TV via social media.
And you actually like know these people
Mhm.
a lot of times.
Well, a lot of them you think you know. And
Oh,
that,
yeah.
and especially when you get into real estate, you do a real estate deal with a friend of yours that you thought you knew. You're like, oh my God, like this. There are some that
We're
you
not
just
supposed to think that.
no, but it's crazy. Like there's some that are like they're just so different from the
Yeah.
way that when you're hanging out with them, and they're very happy-go-lucky, whatever. And then there's some that are just they'll call you to. There's no boundaries when you're selling their house. 11:30 at night, 5 a.m, getting like, whoa.
And there's no shame.
And they have no
Like,
shame. And then they think they can yell and scream at me. I'm like, first of all, chill out. I'm like,
Yeah.
grass is green, water's wet, the sun will rise tomorrow.
Yeah.
This is not the end of the world. Let me do what I do. I'm not going to come into your business and tell you what you do. You need to trust the process. And they just lose their minds. And then there's others that you would think go that way that are just so unbelievably amazing to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones that I'm like, you know what? And I try to do something like extra nice or whatever I can. I mean, I always try to if I can.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that really make you like lose sleep, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to pump the brakes on that relationship because they got a little bit of crazy on them. And I don't want that crazy to infect me.
Sometimes it really surprises you. And I'm sure like what are your thoughts? You're like, why is your phone ringing at midnight? Like,
So-
what's going on?
That's the thing. He's so good at just making sure that like if a client needs something, there's no time frame. It's not like I turn off work at this time. And some people actually put it out there like on their voicemail, like don't call me after a certain time or I don't work on weekends, blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. But he's always available. And so he's willing to help a lot of people like that. There was one year that I got him because we don't have iPhones, we have Androids. But
You
for
sounded like you
Christmas,
were like feeling shame with that.
because I'm like, I'm going to say it and people are going to be like,
Apple
oh.
people think they love their
But-
phones, but it's literally a worse phone than an Android.
But I got him
Has a lot less features.
one
but-
of the like the watches, right, to wear. So because basically the routine that I saw was he like if I want to charge my phone and I want my phone, I'll usually have it next to me and plug it in like under the couch or something, and my phone is always there. He always plugs it in on the kitchen counter to charge. And then as soon as he sits down, he's like, a text or a call, he's like, oh. So I try to get him one of the watches or whatever that basically it wasn't so he could be disturbed more, but that way he could see, is it a telemarketer? Is it worth somebody getting out for? If it's just a text, then he could just text him back instead of having to sit down, get back up again. And I was like feeling all good because it's hard to surprise him. You know, we're getting older. You don't really get like gifts too much. So it's just like, what can I get him? I'm like, I think I was feeling proud of myself. I'm like, he's going to be surprised. This is going to help his business. He's going to be able to relax when he sits down. If his phone is charging, he didn't want it. Like he didn't want it. So like I returned it, but he still does the same thing when he plugs in his phone to charge it. The second he sits down, he gets back up again. And sometimes it's nothing. And then it's like, so I was trying to do it more from a convenience standpoint, but he's the one that puts that pressure on himself and he's the one that does it. So I'm like, if he's fine with like getting on the phone, then like that's fine because it's funny because I also use that as like free time for myself. So when he's on the phone, then I'm like, oh god, I could edit that video or something. So if he's talking, if he's in the car, anytime he's talking, I'm like, okay, then I don't feel so bad because I know the perception of anybody that's on their phone all the time. It looks bad, right? You
Yeah.
do look like you're addicted or you're obsessed with your phone, but there's a lot of things that I'm not literally just aimlessly scrolling through Facebook. Sometimes I am researching or I'm getting information, or sometimes I'm editing something for myself or for other
Mhm.
people. And there's a lot that goes into it. So I feel really guilty sometimes that I am on my phone a lot. So when he's doing his thing, it relieves the pressure for me that I'm
Like you can
like,
both
okay, I
be
could do
working
this.
at
And
the same
he's,
time.
yes.
The
Yeah.
reason behind it, and I love the fact that she thought of me that way, trying to make my life easier. I like to disconnect.
Yeah.
This, you know, as well as I both of you, this business will eat you alive. If I get a text, I have to respond right away. That's how I built my business because,
Just let it sit there.
well, the thing is, you
know?
text other realtors about showings and feedback and they never respond. I'm like, I never want to be that guy.
No.
So my clients love me because they're like, you answer your phone on Sundays, on Sunday morning, on Saturday late night, you know, and I'm like, part of my job. And I
Yeah.
think of it that way because everything is a means to an end. I want to retire while I'm still upright. I don't want to be, you know, not to, somebody takes it the wrong way. That's their problem. But I don't want to be 70, 75 years old
Still
and still like actively
Right.
having to grind every single
Right.
day. I've worked hard to not have that issue in my life.
Mhm.
And I also don't think I can ever fully retire, but nor do I want to because that's complacency and I'm not a
Yeah.
complacent person. But I do value my time. I don't care if it's watching show. I think we've watched every damn show on Netflix already, but I don't want to have something on my wrist that's going off when I'm trying to spend time with my wife. So I take the phone, I put it in the kitchen, which is, you know, right behind our little family room. And sometimes I'll just put it on mute, but I can still hear,
Everybody still gets
and
up,
I'll sit
though.
back. And then she's like, are you going to get that? And I just want to watch, you know, I just want to watch the show. I almost know who it is. I almost know. And if it's somebody that I know is going to text me 350 times a day, they're going to wait.
Right. Because you've talked to them 800 times already.
Correct. And so I didn't want something on my wrist that's going to continually go off, that's going to interrupt my time that I want to spend with my wife.
Or
and my
give you
kids.
Anxiety. We've talked about this. I'm like, I have to mute it. Like
Yeah.
that dinging noise, whether it's an email or a text or social media, and I'm like, It's too much.
It is. And that's,
Because you feel like you have to check.
Right. And I can, it's overwhelming.
It's
Mhm.
alarming.
Yeah.
Like,
Theo gave a good suggestion to me years ago when he deleted Facebook and other apps off of his phone. And being a realtor, you kind of need those things for advertising now, because the days of, mailers and all that crap, it's 1990s real estate. Today you got to be up with the times and stuff.
Mhm.
And so I still have the app on my phone, but I intentionally leave it alone. And I'll check it a handful of times a day.
I have certain time blocks of when I'm going to look.
Because it's very easy to get wrapped up, especially Instagram.
Yeah.
And then you
Instagram's like
start
the greatest and worst thing, because it's
I know,
hilarious,
watching
and
other
it's like,
things, and now I'm not doing anything.
Next
look
thing
at
you
this
know,
comedian.
next thing you know, you're watching somebody pack their lunch
Yeah.
for their
Or clean a
husband.
carpet 500
And
times.
it's like, why am I watching this? I mean, why can I look away? But it's so entertaining.
it's incredibly addictive. I was actually watching this morning on the news. So in the mornings, I have the same routine every single morning: make her coffee or feed the dogs, make her coffee, make some breakfast, and then I intentionally will watch Fox News at 6 a.m., NBC at 7.
Okay.
And so I watch just to see the difference in what they cover. Yesterday was a hard day for me to watch. I got
Mhm.
pissed
Yeah.
because without getting political, the liberal media could give a shit about veterans. Didn't even talk about Veterans Day.
Mhm.
And the entire
Memorial
first
Day.
or Memorial Day, the entire first hour was giving honor to veterans and fallen soldiers and all that on Fox, which means a lot to me, right?
Yeah.
And when I see them just completely, they're talking about, Lizzo's great comeback and the weather and stuff, like, without even mentioning the people that keep our country free and the ones that died to do it. And then there's other days where I'll watch and it's the exact opposite, because I like to have a good picture of both sides.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan, and Rogan came out with a saying a long time ago that I've tried to take to heart, because it's very easy in today's world to get wrapped up in politics. And that is, don't ever get married to your ideas. And it's very easy to get married to ideas on one side or the other. I don't care.
Yeah.
You don't get married. Always listen to someone. In my office, when you walk into to the Remax office, I have it, and it's never coming down until the day I retire. The second you walk into my office, I listen to Marcus Luttrell, the lone survivor, and he talked about, how Navy SEALs, how they bring in information. I got a couple SEAL friends, and they have the 3 R's: receive information, reflect on the information, and then respond to the information. Since I started doing that, my life has gotten a lot better, because I used to be very reactionary, and somebody would bring up a view that I disagreed with, and I'd instantly just have that trigger button, got to get back at them.
That way.
How dare you?
But it's helped me in so many different areas of life. Most recently I got into jujitsu. So I go to Gracie Trinity with Kevin Gallagher, amazing place. I freaking love going in that place. I get injured a lot. Probably shouldn't have taken it up at close to 50 years old, but I love it, because the camaraderie of the guys and the girls that are in there, and it is like nothing that I've experienced except when I was in the military.
Mm-hmm.
But you sit there and nobody has, you have to, jujitsu is it's a game. It's a martial art, but it's a game, and it's about little decisions in very quick moments. And although I suck at it right now, I'm getting better, and it's great to hear, like, when the coaches, they call themselves professors, when you're black belts and whatnot, they give you that little bit of encouragement, saying, hey, I just saw you rolling over there. You did that good. Or, you'll be rolling with someone and it's a very big ego hit. I told Jamie about it. Inside of Gracie, there's women, and then there's men, and then there's young girls. I have gotten my ass kicked by teenage girls, and it is a major ego kill. And there's one in particular that goes in there, and she's 14. She's an incredible young girl, but she beats up all the men like it's nothing. If I had a daughter, 100% they'd be in jiu-jitsu, 100%, because to watch the confidence of what her and her sister can do, I'm like, I want to get to that level. And I always tell the coaches in there, I'm like, I want to get to that level. This girl's younger than my kids, but watching how, like, the confidence that she can carry herself, and her sister as well, but they're like full on murderers. They are full on assassins. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, I walk in and she literally poked me in the chest one day. She goes, I don't care how big your muscles are. She's like, I'm going to kick your ass. And I sat back and I'm like, okay. And then one of the, he was a purple belt. No, I didn't have a choice. She freaking wraps me up in a pretzel. And I'm like, hold on. And then anyway, without going into jujitsu stuff, but it's incredible how small decisions can affect everything else that happens, and it's the same thing in being a business owner. I became part of that Trinity OGs group that's on Facebook. And so I've been to a couple of their meetings, and some of those business owners have reached out to me to say, hey, can you help me in this and this? Because I've seen some of the stuff that you do. I love that stuff. I freaking love it. Watching somebody succeed, watching somebody go from nothing to building where they want to be in life. I don't care if it's financial. I don't care if it's just being successful at your business. If you truly love what you do, you will never work a day in your life. And the one thing I always say to all of them, don't ever look at a paycheck. Because the second you start looking at your business in terms of dollars and cents, you miss out on your customer service. You miss out on that personal relationship. And guess what? You're going to miss out on referrals too. Something that's great that I've been meaning to call him is Danny 2. I saw a post that Danny 2 did, I think it's a week ago, saying, hey, Trinity Auto is going to be expanding. And like, I remember when he had like one bay, and all he worked, it was like Jeep every day. But I freaking love that, because I don't
own their space and
right
for a while.
and he always has cars.
Yeah.
But that's a testament to what he does. And not just him, but like, I know that Ashley supported him in that business. And I know that, he's had, some mechanics come and go, but he's got a couple that have been with him. But I love watching that stuff.
Yeah.
That's like my favorite thing. When I see a business owner that just, they click it and then they run with it and they go. Yeah. And to his credit, and we all know, Danny and his family, they deserve it. Because they put the time and the sweat equity in, and he had to figure some things out to get there, but now he's expanding.
Yeah, don't we all?
And
whenever we start something new or start a new business, it's like, all right, you go into it thinking one thing, and then you have to maybe figure something out and do a tumble here or there, but then, you just.
But so many don't.
Running a business is completely different than what we actually do.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
I think of it almost like a marriage. You put in what you want to get out.
Yeah.
If I want my marriage to be happy, I have to put effort into making her day better. And then for her, it's kind of effortless for her because it's just the person she is. She makes every day of my life better. And the same thing with a business. If you go ahead and you cultivate that business, and business owners have a very hard time taking that step back and analyzing what you're doing. I will always ask. I call the leaders of Remax Alliance Group all the time. Usually it's once a month. Hey, what do you think I could be changing up? Some of them are like, Mike, you're kicking ass. You're doing really good. No, I could be doing better.
Yeah.
But the second you let that little fire go out, and anyway, I went on a little rant, but that's like one of my passions in life is watching other people succeed, because I know that I never had that until I met but the coach and his wife took me in, and they believed in me. And to this day, I will never let them down. I finally got to reconnect with him after, I think it's like 4 years ago. It took me almost 20, 30 years to track him down. And I finally found him. He's got a house in Blairsville. He has a house in the Villages. I went golfing with him a couple times this year. And there's no debt that you can't repay that debt, And I remember the first time that we went to his house and he got to meet my kids and he got to meet Jamie, and his daughter showed up. And I was
gonna say, don't make me cry. My eyes are already welling.
I got teary eyed, and I just looked at her and I
didn't do it to be repaid.
He didn't, but she was still in high school. So she was a grade behind me. And her brother had already graduated. And I said, hey, can I borrow you for a minute? And I can remember this almost like the day that I met my wife and I saw her get out of the car when I saw, when I saw her come up. And I said, I just got to talk to you for a minute. I just went out back and I just started crying. She goes, what's wrong? I said, I can't imagine what it was like having a strange boy living in the room next to you that wasn't a part of your family in high school. She goes, Mike, that's just what my family does. Like, to her, it was normal. And she literally said, and she goes, that was just what we do.
I
And
think you were the first strange boy that.
turns out there was one other. But that didn't come during high school years. And I told her, I said, but we were in high school together. So like we'd drive there and he had like a Jeep Cherokee and he would drop her off so she could walk, or I would get dropped off so they wouldn't see it. And I just said, I've been carrying so much guilt for all these years for what I put you through. She goes, you didn't put me through anything. She goes, you came in and you were like a part of our family and you'd go fishing with my dad every night. And that was great, by the way. His house was right on the water. So we go like tarpon fishing. I'd be done with school and we'd be out catching snook and tarpon every day. And I was like, this is great, but for her, I invaded her space and I didn't do it intentionally. I did it because her family
But to reflect on it, most people wouldn't think about how that affected them later on.
Because people are self-absorbed and I've had to learn to not be that.
Yeah.
And it's going back to what I talked about, like with my parents. And I think that's a big reason why they kind of grew apart, because they were both my dad was into keeping a clean car and watching English football. My mother was into nursing and baking cakes. And they never had any common threads of anything. How they cohabitated, I don't know. They had nothing in common. But it's all about caring about what the other person wants out of life.
Yeah.
And so, Jamie and I, as I'm a year and a half from being 50, I said, let's get our bucket list over while we're young. Because
you won't be able to do it later.
Right. And so, it's amazing because I say to her, I'm like, where would you want to go? And she's so wonderful and so simple. She's like, I don't know. I've done everything we want to do. I'm like, okay, well, let's make a wish list and do these things. Like, because for me, it's like,
what else?
I know. He's
Gotta
like,
be at least one thing.
I'm like, I'm thankful. Like, I am so thankful. Like he was saying, like the places that we've gone. And he's like, I mean, is there anywhere? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I should be super thankful. Like, okay. But I mean, there were only like two places that I mentioned. Even saying it out loud, I was like, oh gosh, I'm not trying to be like bougie, but if you're asking me like to pick someplace, if we have a bucket list, because I'm not a big bucket list person in general, whether it's travel or anything else. I don't like to like do the bucket list thing. But yeah, he was just like, where do you want to go? So I listed like there were just two places. Like if we have to, if I have to pick something.
but see, that's
Experience, though, and then you get to experience it together.
Right.
And talk about it, and you learn from everywhere that you go. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. And see that's a good example of like why I love her so much, because I can ask her, and I just, not to sound horrible, but I know that if some of my friends asked their wives, hey, bucket list, where do you want to go? They would list off a million freaking things that they wanted to do. And as long as we're together, she doesn't care.
I'm like, I just want to go to my
And-
taekwondo tournament. Like the ones that are out of state, like just, don't give me a hard time about
Yeah.
that. Like I just want to go to like certain tournaments throughout the year. And if I can go to those and like there's no stress, then like that kind of stuff makes me happy. Because if I can like do those kinds of things. But yeah.
That's cool, though.
Yeah,
I'll be
it's
fine if we go on a vacation. I'll be fine if we hang out at the house.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
totally fine if we hang out at the house. Like he said something the other day, like, I don't know. I got to go somewhere because I can't just sit in the house and stare at walls all day. I'm like, I could stare at walls all day. Like I could be in a
life
padded
is
room.
to me, life
and
is about
stare at
living.
a wall.
And although I'm a very big planner. If I go on a vacation, it's boom, 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 boom. We have everything set up. Doesn't matter where we go, what we do. The only place we didn't do that was Alaska, because we went there as the pandemic kicked off. Turned out to be the greatest freaking thing ever. But we had no plan. But for instance, when we went to, Yellowstone or any vacation, I have it from day one. Here's our itinerary. Boom, 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 boom. And then even Europe. Europe was difficult to plan because it was like, there was a lot of stuff going from Germany to Italy to here to here to here. But she's grateful for it at the end. She goes, we never would have done those things if you hadn't planned it. She hated it when I was doing it because she felt like she was getting stressed out. But that's our yin and yang. She appreciates parts of me. I appreciate parts of her. And then it just kind of works.
But like where he mentioned when he said that I'm so adventurous, like I'm not an adventurous person.
If she's forced to be adventurous, she's
right.
adventurous.
So he has pushed me to be adventurous in doing things like, oh my gosh, zip lining and even jet skiing. Like I don't like to go too fast on the, so
Yeah.
if he didn't push me to do those things, then I probably wouldn't, because I would be just as satisfied just doing nothing.
Mhm.
And even when we go on our next trip, he's like, maybe we'll rent jet skis again. And I was like, oh, you and Cameron can go on the jet skis. Me and Connor will just be on the beach laying down, drinking our pina coladas. But it's because of those kind of things. It's just like going to the gym, working out. Like, I love working out. I love doing all those things. But there's days where it's like, I don't know. But he's like, let's go. And then I'm
Yeah.
glad that he did. So it does sometimes take that person
To
to
help
push you
push
to
you.
go.
Yeah.
It's like, have you ever watched South Park? You ever see the accountability buddies? There's an episode about being an accountability buddy. And so they were holding each other accountable to things that they didn't want to do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so this is my life partner. So we're each other's accountability buddies. So if she doesn't want to do something, but I know she'll feel better after it, I'll push her,
Yeah.
to a point and be like, you're really not going to feel good about yourself having sat in bed while I'm going to the gym. And she's like, okay, fine. And she's, the worst part is like
Well, not now that you said
it.
getting that coffee out of her hand. I'm like,
Yeah.
just bring the coffee with you. It's going to be okay. We're good. But it's, for me, life is worth living. It's what's the quote? Walt Whitman, most men lead lives of quiet desperation. I don't want to lead a life of quiet desperation. I love doing things that I normally wouldn't do. I've jumped out of planes and I've been in horrible situations in the military. And, with my family, I want to expose them we went to a grizzly bear island. We had grizzly bears about 20 yards away from us. And it was unfreaking believable. But that was awesome because we were just exploring through with no itinerary in Alaska. We sat down at some little dive bar trying to get a burger because nothing was open. And the guy's like, you want to go on my plane? He's like, there's no tourist here. Let's go. We're like, okay, great. And I got a video of it. He lands us on this little beach. We go around this rock and there's probably, I don't know, 100, 200 grizzly bears.
Oh, wow.
And he goes, don't worry. He goes, these ones here, he goes, these were problem bears. And they brought him to this island. I'm like, okay, look. I go, look, not for nothing, Chief. I hunt. I don't have a gun on me. I go, I need a gun. He goes, you don't need a gun.
To the island with problem bears.
So
They're gonna attack you.
the guy was about 6'8". He was a NCAA wrestler at one point, and now he's a grizzly bear guide for hunting and for viewing.
Mm-hmm.
And he sat there and he's like, he goes, don't worry about it. These bears want nothing to do with you. We got a great picture of like me, my wife, my two kids with literally a grizzly bear right over our shoulder. And he goes, they're going to eat the blueberries. They want nothing to do with you. And after you were there it took about 15 minutes for that to set in. I was like, okay, yeah.
You feel one.
I'm like, I know how this goes. I've watched these bear attack videos a million times. And being a hunter, like I've been charged by bears,
Yeah.
when I'm up on a mountain and stuff, and I only had a bow and arrow. And you want something that's going to pucker you up quick, go against a wild animal with nothing more than an arrow in your hand. And so,
I think I'll pass on that one.
no, but the thing is, once you learn like animal behavior, and I remember as that was happening, because that happened last year to me. I was at 11,000 feet. It was a hailstorm that was coming down, and then tons of rain. And I just turned a corner, and this black bear was right there. And he came right at me, and just whoa, whoa. And you want something that's going to make you feel like less of a human, like let you know your place on this earth. And I was like, oh, this isn't going to go well. So I took an arrow out. But then I remembered this guy, and he said, the only thing that grizzly bears understand, and to some extent, I would say probably more so black bears, if you run at them and show them you're not afraid, they only understand aggression. And most people, if you run, they're going to come and they're going to pounce on you. And that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, am I going to run at a grizzly bear? No. I'm 5'8", 190 pounds. I'm not running at a grizzly bear.
Yeah.
But it does work. And it's crazy. It does work because they're just as scared of us as we are of them. But the ultimate thing in life that will kill, I don't care if it's a relationship, a business, doesn't matter, is fear. You got to conquer your fear. And you have to say, I'm going to try this. And if it doesn't work out, so what? I'm going to learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some lessons, especially in real estate with marketing and advertising, really expensive lessons that I learned, but it makes you better.
Yeah.
You'll
You'll never make them again.
That's how you
it's
learn.
amazing. A lot of realtors still do.
I speak for myself.
Yeah.
For you. I personally speaking.
Yeah.
But
In most
not
cases.
everybody gets it the first, second, or third time.
Yeah. You can't help stupid. And just is what it is. It takes all kinds to make the world go round, I guess.
Yeah, it does. It certainly does. So where are we at? Where are we at with time and everything?
I think we're done. We're at 1:30.
All right.
Any other rapid questions y'all want to fire away, or we're just gonna
So
rock and
my
roll?
thing would be, I guess when it comes from like a relationship and like marriage standpoint, do you guys have any advice for anyone who is either, one partner is a business owner or both are your own business owners? What would you say is like the key to just keeping it together and staying happy and making sure you guys, this is a couple like part questions, obviously, and then making sure you guys still find time to, just be together. Like, how do you separate it and
I think
keep it together?
I think one thing is, and I don't know where I read it because I totally forgot, but it's always kind of been in the back of my, it's like, don't be a dream crusher.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people, just like Mike is talking about, like taking that risk, getting over your fear, right? And some people, it probably takes a lot of courage to say that they want to do something
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know if they're going to succeed at it or not. So if they're passionate about it, if they're willing to learn, if they're willing to put in the work and just seeing how it goes, I feel like don't crush their dreams. Like let them have that opportunity to do it because you don't know where it's going to go. And then if it does become stressful or anything like that, it's really, you just have to have really good communication and an understanding that nobody is trying to do something to hurt the other person. Like to be in business or to find a job that makes them happy is only going to bring more joy, hopefully in the future, right? Because then we don't want to like add any negative energy. We don't want to like add to each other's stress. So, I mean, I feel like that's my mindset behind it as far as like really just be encouraging and don't crush that other person's, even the idea that maybe they could possibly do something.
Yeah.
I think you have to, for me, I view it as constantly investing in my relationship. And so we'll be on the couch watching whatever garbage show we're watching. And I'll just say to her, I'll be like, you'd be good at that. You should do this. So for instance, when she recently made a transition from her boutique, I said, you should promote your social media. You're so good at it. You know how to build websites. You know how to bring attention to marketing ideas and advertising ideas. Turn it into a business. And then you don't have overhead. You don't have to worry about selling anything to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's getting a lot of calls for people. Hey, we got a call today about, hey, we're on our way home from the gym. And it was, hey, can you revamp my website? My website's kind of stale. Sure, no problem. Another business owner that was from the Trinity OG said, hey, can you help me? I'm starting a business. I want to get it up and running. What can we do? And I met with him at first. And then he needed someone for social media. I said, look, no strings attached. Interview my wife. You want to use her? Great. I go, there's nobody better. I'll tell you that much. There's nobody that's more creative, period, that I've seen in our area.
I have to social media stalk you.
Yeah, you could creep on online
Watch
stuff.
out. It's a little dangerous, but
you're gonna get stuck on my page.
So many people get wrapped up in themselves, and you're talking about like when running businesses, invest in your partner. There's emotional investments, and then there's business investments. And it doesn't have to be financial, just for her to know that I believe in her.
Yeah.
And sometimes we take a risk. Sometimes it's a little bit of a financial risk or something, depending on what business she wanted to start. But if it makes her happy, it makes me happy. And
knowing that you have the support if you were to fail at whatever your new idea is comforting. That
right.
At least you have one person on your team.
And it's you can have it. It has to be unconditional though.
Yeah.
You cannot have conditions around your support because you'll see through it.
Right.
It's like having a fake friend.
Yeah.
The best friends you can have are the ones that still talk good about you when you're not around.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that word gets back to them, they're like, hey, I heard what you said. I appreciate that. How could I say anything different?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if I genuinely care about somebody, and as you get older, your circle of friends gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And I don't really know why that is, but I have a lot more acquaintances now than I do people that I consider friends. And then I also gauge friends by how often do they call me compared to how often do I call them. And then, circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller, but you also avoid drama. And then I know who my core is.
Mm-hmm. You can depend on and who actually brings something to your life.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
But the one common denominator, your husband, Mike, Jamie, this is the common denominator that's never going to go away.
Yeah.
And so I will invest in whatever makes her happy as good as I can. And if it's time and energy, things like that. And sometimes it's stupid little things. you know, things that irk the living daylights out of me that I've learned to kind of shut my mouth, like filming her on the way in here so she can make a video.
Yeah.
He's come a long way.
I've come a long way because I'm like, can we just have one day? Like just one day, you know, we went to, first time, and I don't even know how long that we were away without kids. You know, we went to St. Augustine. We were like, let's leave the kids home alone and see if the house burns down. And 2 teenage boys, you know, they're both out of high school now. One graduates Monday, I think it is Monday or something like that. And then the other one's already been out. And so I'm like, let's just see what it feels like. And it felt so good to date my wife again.
Yeah.
Like to just date her. And we went out and she wanted to film a million different things in St. Augustine. And I was like, you know what? Great. We got no kids around. This is going to make her happy. We're filming stuff. We're doing whatever. And it felt good to kind of support her in that way. You know, now I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it gets out of control, like where I can take 5 steps down the street. And she goes, oh my God, the backdrop in this is just so great. The lighting. I'm like, no, I don't care. I just filmed you 2 seconds ago. Like, give me a break. I'm like, let me just
To
let me
touch on
enjoy
that,
St.
I
Augustine
even-
a little bit.
I even had to kind of like justify myself a little bit in that. And when I go to places, especially like St. Augustine or someplace that has character, right? Because I have such a creative perspective on things.
Yeah.
I even told Mike, I'm like, even if it wasn't me, like even if it wasn't me asking you to take pictures of me or take video of me, I wish maybe there was even somebody else here. I would take pictures of them or a video with them because I see a door that just like it's an old door or something, but I can see somebody standing in front of that door. But now it's just us. I was like, why not me? Right. So
Yeah, it's
take
gotta be me.
advantage of like that. There's like something beautiful about that thing. So like take advantage of like while we're here, because it's like when you're not there anymore, then you don't have that chance. So
Yeah.
I even mentioned that, like, even if it was somebody else that was here with us, because I see those kinds of things. And it could be like even on the corner where it's like the broken down like shed or something. I always see that, which is, I feel like that if, you know, when you have job interviews, they're like, what are your weaknesses? Like I see too much potential in
beauty
things
everything.
and
Yeah.
even in people. So and then it makes me, it feels like, yeah, it's probably like a gift in a sense, because it's also like, it's hard because there's just so much
Yeah.
that's out there, but I can't control it. I can't do all the things. So it's it's hard.
She sees the best in the bad things in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I think that we've grown closer, is that I have become her when we first met, and she's become me. And I showed her I showed her the pessimistic side of the world. I'm like, you know, people suck and they will always try and take advantage of you.
Yeah.
And I was very jaded given how I grew up and all that other stuff. And then she was like, okay, great, everything's great today, sun's shining. And I'm like, I couldn't be like that. And
Right, yeah.
now she's like a road rager, and I'm like, calm down.
I'm a grown up,
you know, but we'll walk through. I mean, literally, we were in, God, one of the biggest shithole places we ever visited was Birmingham, Alabama. If you ever been there, there's nothing in Birmingham, freaking Alabama. And, you know, she's sitting there filming like along like this broken down old industrial place, and she
had a railroad track.
But then she shows the video, and like the after is like she makes it look amazing and beautiful and all that stuff. And she's the inspiration around a lot of the videos that I've done, you know, real estate wise. And she'll every day she's like, oh my God, I saw this. Look at this on Instagram. You should do this, and just make it into real estate or something.
Right.
And sometimes I'll fight her for a little bit. I'm like, I can't see how that's going to translate to real estate. But she's like, just trust me.
He's
you know,
thinking
and
so
we'll try
literal
it.
about it. I'm like, I'm not, it doesn't have to be that. It's like, but he doesn't see what I'm trying to tell him.
You're the creative.
Yeah, and she's just wonderful at what she does.
You're
you know,
precise, black and white.
you just got to accept the flaws and accentuate the positive kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you know, it's life's just an incredible journey, and I think you don't realize it until it's too late. You know, I wish I was living my life like this 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I would have been a much happier person. You know, I wouldn't have had such a chip on my shoulder. I wouldn't have been as giving. You know, the greatest feelings I've had in my life is when I've given something away, and I'm very quiet about it. You know, because the thing that bothers me the most in the world is people on social media when they do these fake things about, oh, I'm going to go change the life of a homeless guy. Randomly, I'm just walking down the street with a camera crew. And then, hey, buddy, what would help you today? Oh, I got a brand new Lambo and $1 million. It's like, you're such a douchebag. Everybody knows you're doing that for attention and it's fake and all that other crap. But when, you know, I think back to what my coach did for me, and then I've been able to do that for others, you know, as I don't really equate money to success, but money makes things easier. It
Mhm.
also comes with a lot more problems, but if you're grateful for it and you have the opportunity to change someone's life, you do it.
Right.
And you do it without thinking about it. And, for going to Memorial Day, the closest guy that I was with in the Marine Corps was Marco Sierra. Marco Sierra was the first troop that ever served for me. I was a non-commissioned officer. He came to Camp Smith, and him and a guy named Fabian Ramon, they got off their plane. I had to go to the airport, pick him up and all that stuff. Our VA is irrevocably broken.
Mhm.
And, Marco served a long time in the Marine Corps, and he had some demons that unfortunately got the best of him a few years ago. And it really drove things home because the unit that I was a part of, 30 guys in it, 5 of them are gone. You think about that in your friends, like Trinity, if you think about however many friends you have in Trinity,
Mhm.
and some groups are bigger than others, but let's just say it's 30 or 40 close friends. And then you have 20 or 30% of them gone like that. And it was something that's controllable,
Yeah.
but, I was talking, I try every Memorial Day and even Veterans Day and stuff like that to call my Marine Corps brothers and sisters just to check in. How you doing? What's going on?
Yeah.
Anything I can do for you, let's get together, and it's good, but, people forget to do those things, and Marcos didn't. He'd call us and he'd set us up. He was a real fucker. He would set us up and do Facebook chats, and then he would do a screenshot without telling us, and it would be like the most embarrassing part of the thing where your face is like this or something.
Yeah.
And then he would post it, but we all had that, but we knew about his demons, and then he just couldn't stop them. And so, you think about that, where every day is a gift.
Mhm.
Every single day on this earth is a gift, and it's so short, especially when you have kids. It goes by so fast with kids. And it's like, I was telling Jamie the other day, I can remember high school like it was yesterday. I can remember going to parties in high school, doing stupid stuff that I probably should have been arrested for. And I can remember that. But then, like, the last 20 years or so is a blur because you get wrapped up in
It's like you're blinking.
Mhm.
you get wrapped up in work and nonsense and these stupid things,
Yeah.
social media, all that crap. But you don't pay attention to life and things that matter, with people and interactions and caring for people. That's a big lost art because it's too easy to fight. It's like electricity. People choose the path of least resistance. And they, the least resistance is taking the copper line and just boom, oh, I got you now, whatever. And that's just like the wrong, you can't be reactionary to things, and I watch people that get criticized in our community that genuinely are trying to do good. They genuinely try to do good, and people bash them, and they really bash them hard. And I think we all know some of the ones that are a little more vocal than others,
Mhm.
but you know what? At least they're freaking trying.
Yeah, they're doing something.
At least they're trying, and and whether they're doing it with
Doing
intentions
that
or
or
not with
whatever.
intentions or whatever, but call that person and have a conversation with them.
Right.
Before you go judging what they do, call them,
Have a conversation.
and you might hear a different side,
Mhm.
and so, I've turned that into a habit. If I see someone and maybe I may disagree with something, I was like, hey man, you got time for a quick call? And if I don't know them that well, Facebook Messenger. And if I do know them that well, just call them, text them, hey, let me know when you got a minute.
Yeah.
You'll learn a lot.
Yeah.
You'll learn a lot from
For sure.
people. And I've got 2 friends that I know that they were like this on social media. And all I did is I called one, I called the other. I'm like, this one doesn't have a problem with you. This one doesn't have a problem with you. We good? Like, seriously, just call, message, whatever. Go meet for a beer. If you don't drink, go have a burger, whatever. I think you'll find you have a lot more common ground through just conversation as opposed to keyboard warrior, F you, you suck, whatever.
And from nothing, for no reason.
Yeah, it's just like miscommunication
it's
or
assuming.
misunderstanding.
People
Yeah.
assume the worst.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, it's funny because I think everybody's like this, and I don't want to assume, but I'm 99% sure. I remember when I was a kid and someone would knock on the front door. You're like, who's at the front door? Who's coming to visit? And now it's like, who the fuck is at my front? And
Are
it's
you
like,
respecting somebody?
yeah, are you respecting somebody? Freaking Amazon guy? What's going on?
I go and I hide.
No, but it's
We have
true.
glass doors.
But it's crazy. Like you look like even TV shows way back when. My favorite TV show of all time is Cheers. Always, because when they walk through that front door, Norm, or whatever.
Yeah.
And now you look at the difference in TV shows and how much more aggressive they are. I'll sit back and I will watch The Wonder Years. She used to watch Alf, like nonstop, freaking Alf. But I'll watch
All the
Cheers
reruns.
and Night Court and Seinfeld and some of the other ones. And it's like you see the difference in evolution and how we've almost been trained to go down that route without knowing it. Because the last, I think, wholesome show that was out there was probably Friends in the 90s.
Mhm.
And then you look at everything else and it's all guns and violence and attorneys screwing each other over and stuff like that. Every show.
Stressful, so stressful.
And it's all
Yeah.
drama because
All
drama
drama.
sells.
Right.
Drama sells, but it all has like violence and anger attached to it. Where back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, well, 70s had a little bit of racist stuff going on, but the 80s and 90s was like, the A team was the heroes. There was no cursing. It was all supporting each other, fun, slapstick humor, whatever. But to me, like, that's how life should be. I think I was born in the wrong generation. I should have been born in the 40s and 50s when business was a smile and a handshake and people were honest and you helped your neighbor. We live in an acreage community. We don't even know half our neighbors. We know the ones that are some real mother effers,
I
but
think you know all the neighbors.
I don't know them, but I make it a point to try.
Right, that's true.
I make it a point to try to know my neighbors, even if it's just on a surface level. And I'll tell you one thing, it paid off in spades about a week ago. This is going to sound horrible, but for me, it paid off in spades. So across the street from me, there's a little Polish lady, and she is as tough as nails, and people take that as though she's mean.
Right.
I just had conversations with her. Don't talk to her that much. If you step on her lawn, you better have a gun with you because she will come at you. She's very meticulous about her landscaping, but her husband was a Vietnam vet. She was outside one day by her mailbox. I was outside, literally just getting some sun, screwing around. I think I was shooting arrow. I was shooting my bow in the yard. And so, I got a little archery range at my house. I'm just sitting there shooting the bow. And I turn around, like, she's still sitting by that mailbox. I put my bow down. I walk over. I go, hey, how are you? She's bawling, crying. This she's tougher than almost any man I've ever met. And I said, are you okay? She's like, my husband died. I'm like, when? She goes, a couple days ago. So she goes, can you help me? She goes, I want to have military at his funerals this Friday. The wake is this Thursday. She goes, can you help me put his uniform together? I know that you were in the military. I said, yeah, sure. No problem. So I spent Memorial Day yesterday at her house, putting his ribbons and his medals. What was amazing to me is, you can live across the street from someone and never really know them because people
Most
are
wouldn't have gone over to say anything.
So people are in their bubbles. This guy had 3 silver stars. Okay, so the way that medals work in the military, Medal of Honor, right? And then like silver stars, bronze stars, there's a couple other ones in there, Purple Hearts and whatnot. He had every single medal except the Medal of Honor. And he probably deserved that one from some of the stuff that I was in his personal things. Served in multiple wars, enlisted in 1959, got out in 1983. He enlisted in the Marine Corps, switched over to the Army, became a major. After he got out of the Army, became an attorney. I mean, you talk about living a freaking life, this guy. Went through combat, went through all kinds of stuff. I mean, we call it a salad bowl in the military when you see the ribbons that are like this. The only human I've ever seen with a bigger salad bowl than him was the Commandant of the Marine Corps when I met General Krulak. And I was like, oh my God. And she goes, yeah, he never really talked about it. And it was like, how does it not come up that you have 3 silver stars, which that takes an act of Congress and the president to sign off on a silver star, 4 bronze stars for valor in battle, and then Purple Hearts, meaning you got shot, shrapnel, you got injured, during combat. But this guy had been through paratrooper school, air assault school, jungle warfare train, everything. And he was the most calm, mild-mannered guy you'd ever want to meet. And he was so nice. But the fact that she trusted me to come over on Memorial Day to help her in her time of need, to put his uniform together for his final resting place, was, to me, it meant more than it. And all I did, I was just nice to her. All the other neighbors, they just yell and scream at her. And what, I was just nice to her. And that meant a lot to me to do that. You know, I mean, it took away time from my family that I wanted to spend on a day off, but it didn't matter because that meant more to her and made a difference in her life. And to watch someone that's hard as nails cry their eyes out. And for me, you know, I was thinking of it in terms of my brother, Marco Sierra, that passed. And I couldn't go. I couldn't get out to New Mexico for his funeral because Jamie was traveling in Hawaii for her sister. And I've regretted that I never got to really say goodbye, but I don't think I need to, because I keep memories up here. That's how I say goodbye. I'm not a big funeral guy. I don't like going to funerals. You know, I don't want to remember someone sitting in a casket. I want to remember them the way that I remember them.
Right.
You know, in the good times. You still have the pain inside and all that, but for that lady who's by herself, has no family here at all, like, that's going to be a Memorial Day that I'll never forget.
Right.
I will never forget that day. And I didn't know him that well. You know, I talked to him a handful of times, but the guy's a freaking American hero with what he has done. And nobody got to know him. So I put a little post, you know, in our neighborhood chat, and I just said, for those of you, you know, may or may not have known him, his wake is this Thursday, the funeral is this Friday, picture of his uniform. And I said, for the military members, you know, inside of our community, this guy had every medal but the Medal of Honor. And I put a picture of as I was putting the uniform together. I didn't have it completed, but it's the only time I could take a picture of it because she was crying and all kinds of other stuff. I'm like, this guy is literally like the picture of what America is.
Yeah.
America is where men are men, you know, and they go to war and they defend and they do it for the right reasons, whether you agree with the war or not. A lot of people disagree with the Vietnam War. A lot of people disagree with the Afghanistan and the Iraqi War. Rightfully so. But when you raise your hand, I was 17 years old when I did it, and you have to write your own last will and testament, because the assumption is you go in the military, you're going to die, going to combat.
Right. Yeah.
Is you protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Period. And you don't question it. I don't get to choose what war I fight. He didn't get to choose what war he fought. But
He didn't create it.
He didn't cry about, oh, poor me, I'm in a wheelchair. He went and got a freaking law degree after he'd been shot multiple times. He ran a law practice. He did so many things. But the point of the story is that there's so many wonderful people out there. And maybe the grumpy old bastard in your neighborhood just wants a friend.
It's gotta be nice to them, and then they're like,
That's
oh,
it.
Okay.
Talk to him.
Yeah, you catch more bees with honey.
Yeah.
You know, and it costs nothing to be nice. It costs nothing to be nice. And paying it forward is the best gift you can give, especially when it comes like with your spouse, because she made me a better person and continues to make me a better person. And I cherish every second that I have with her. And I'm not shy about saying that. And she gets sick of me saying it, because I say it to her privately too. Every single day. My job is to make her happy. And I don't take that for granted, you know, because that was my gift. It's like I had an angel brought to earth just for me. And I tell her all the time, I go, if something was ever to happen, you know, I would never marry again. You are my one and only, period. And she's like, yeah, right. You go back to being a slut. And I'm like,
you won't get married again. But
no, but I literally tell her, I go, no, I wouldn't. I would be here for our boys. I would do that. And I'd probably have like a little cabin in the middle of a mountain somewhere in Montana. And I would just hunt and fish and live a very simple life, because I couldn't imagine making coffee for someone else in the morning. It's just that simple. You know.
That's so sweet. That's why he stopped me. I did get a little annoyed. We were about to step into a parking lot from the restaurant we're eating, and a car was coming, but I was paying attention, but he was like, from me walking, I was like,
yeah, she was paying attention.
No, I wasn't even looking
and I
at
just
my
grabbed
phone.
her arm real quick.
I was like, I know how to walk into a parking lot. And he's like, no, you were just about to go walk. I was like, I'm fine. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, you know, I'm gonna get hit by a car, which is very nice. But I was like, I know, like I was paying attention. Like, it's okay. It was just
So-
funny.
Well, it's nice to see though. It's nice to
Yeah.
see, and I think if anybody's ever just had a conversation with, especially Mike, how he talks about you
Thanks.
all the time, and see you guys together, you guys complement each other very well. You guys support each other and trust each other and work as a team. And even though you guys are yin and yang in a lot of ways,
Yes.
it just like goes back to complementing each other and just making each other better and grow. And
So what can you do today to make your partner happy? That's it. I start the day off making her happy. She makes the rest of my day completely happy. And it just, when you think of it that way, as opposed to living, if a lot of married couples live in their own world, like the wife does their thing, the husband does his thing, and there's no us. Like the us got left when the kids came. It doesn't even take work. Once you figure it out, it doesn't even take work.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that does it for this episode.
Thanks for having
Yeah,
us. Just talk
appreciate
about
it.
all the
Thanks for
random
coming.
things.
This is the first podcast we've done as like a couple, so it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah. She had her podcast, I had mine, but we never had each other on our podcast. So it was like,
We could do first.
Well, mine was the Happy Girl podcast. I mostly had women on my podcast, so that wouldn't have worked out that way.
you're so sexist. You're so sexist. I'm offended.
Thank you,
So,
ladies.
but thank you so much for having us
Yeah.
in. I really appreciate it.
Thank
I think
you.
we should do this again in like another couple months.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Hopefully we'll be fighting by
I'm
then.
down.
So,
Right.
Thank you.
All right.
hey guys, see you.
Bye.
Bye.